Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. And I got a bunch of people asking me what are some of my favorites. I actually had a friend of mine from high school text me and she was just like, "You've never steered me wrong. What do I need to buy?" And I decided to make a video. So today I'm going to go through my top, there's actually 7 foundations we're going to go over today, but it's my top 7 foundations at Sephora. So if you're in the market for a new foundation, I'm going to go in for some for oily skin, dry skin, mature skin, the works. So if that's something you're into, make sure to keep on watching. Also, I'm going to link up above a giveaway I have going on currently, so you can enter to win one of 3 mystery bundles. It's in this month's BoxyCharm spoiler video, so I will link that up above. And today we're going to talk about some foundations, so let's jump right into it. All right, so first I'm going to talk about the one I have on today. This is the Wander Beauty Nude Illusion Foundation. I'm wearing it in the shade medium. It is definitely a medium buildable coverage. You can get it all the way to full coverage, as in I have it on full coverage today. I wanted to play around with the formula because I've gotten it matte by using a mattifying primer and some mattifying powders. Today I used some hydrating underneath. I used the Glotion from Tarte that was in BoxyCharm this month, and I set it with the Jouer powder, which is very hydrating. And I feel very radiant and very glowy. So today was the test, and I've officially said this is good for all skin types. If you use a mattifying primer, you can get away with using it without looking shiny. And if you use it with something very hydrating underneath and very glowy, you will absolutely get a glowy, dewy vibe. So this is one that I would recommend for anyone and anyone, regardless of skin type. I like the doe foot applicator as well, because I can really just dot it around and blend it out. I prefer to move this around with the applicator and then blend it out with a sponge, but if you prefer to use a brush, you can absolutely do that. I would recommend using the IT Cosmetics Heavenly Luxe Complexion Brush, as I love using this with foundations of this texture. Next, for, again, all skin types, this is the Jouer Essential High Coverage Cream Foundation. It is a very, very thin liquid. It is probably the thinnest consistency of all of the foundations that I have. It feels super weightless. It's infused with cucumber extract and hyaluronic acid, so very hydrating, but it's a matte finish. So if you're drier, you can still get a matte finish without looking like a crocodile. And if you're oily, you can still get that hydration to the skin so it doesn't suck into your pores like a lot of other foundations. This would be another great pick. But this one I would not recommend applying with a sponge. I definitely prefer using a brush. I actually like using it with the Jouer paddle brush just because it doesn't soak up a lot of product. Like I mentioned, it is a very liquidy formula, so you do want to be careful with the consistency of it, because if you use a sponge, it'll soak up a lot of product. So moving on to my normal skinned people who aren't super oily, aren't super dry. This is going to be the Stay Naked Weightless Foundation from Urban Decay. This is a fantastic, 50 shades. They got a lot of undertones, even if you're olivey or neutral, they actually have good undertones. This is in the shade 30 CP, which is my perfect New York shade. It's a little bit light for me right now because I have a little bit of a tan. I live in Florida, so I kind of always have a tan now. But this is my New York shade, and it definitely works out really well. Beautiful foundation, so much better than the All-Nighter. When Urban Decay came out with this, they definitely made an improvement. The reason I like this is my favorite foundation of all time was the discontinued Dior Forever Skin Foundation. They came out with a matte and a hydrating version, neither of which are the same. I don't like either of those, but this is what I have found to be the closest formula to that Dior one that I've loved forever. For my oily friends out there, Fenty Beauty Pro Filter, mine is in the shade 200. Again, it's a little light for me right now, but it is my perfect New York shade. Matte finish. If you are dry, this is gonna potentially cake and, dry up on you. Definitely more for those of you who are on the oily side. I have not tried their hydrating one in a very long time, but it was way too glowy for me. So if you're dry, you might want to try the hydrating one, but definitely not this one. This is amazing though if you are more on the oily side. This you can use a brush or a sponge for. I like a mixture of the two. I'll apply it with a brush and then finesse it with a sponge just to make it perfected, but you can get away with either with this formula. For my dry friends out there, this is the Airbrush Flawless Foundation Stay All Day and Night from Charlotte Tilbury. Beautiful formula. This is in the shade 5 Cool. It is amazing for mature skin. I find that it does not settle into lines, wrinkles, or pores, so it really does give you that perfected look, especially for those of you who might have more mature skin. What I will say about this one is it does tend to work better for those of you who are on the normal side. It is a matte finish, but I find it gets glowy on me, so I really need to prime and set properly for this to work. It's not like the Fenty where it's going to be matte even if you don't use a powder. This one I find I could get a little greasy with, but I've noticed that some people who are drier can tend to look cakey as well. So this is more for that normal, but it works really well if you're looking that you have to settle, looking to cover lines that you don't want it to settle into. Sorry, words are hard today. I did want to include one with SPF, even though, and I've said this before, foundations with SPF, you should still wear an SPF underneath. I have a tinted moisturizer that I love from the brand Beauty For Real, which has SPF in it. I still put on a broad spectrum SPF underneath that. So even though this has SPF in it, I still recommend putting on your own sunscreen before, but I know a lot of you like to have sunscreen in your foundation, so I did choose the Bobbi Brown Skin Longwear Weightless Foundation with SPF 15. It is oil-free and shine control and full cover. I will agree that it did all of those things. It is definitely full coverage. It is definitely good for shine control. Mine is in the shade Cool Beige. You'll notice I'm very cool in my undertones. Cool means leaning pink. Warm means leaning yellow. So all of mine tend to be leaning pink because I am not warm, I am cool. This foundation I found had a really nice wear time, blurred and smoothed nicely, but it's definitely more for those of you who are on the oily side. But similarly to the Jouer foundation and the Wander foundation, if you're dry, as long as you're hydrating properly and not using a ton of powder, you can still get it to look good. But I think if you're oily, it's really meant for you. And the last foundation is one that I have been loving and going back and forth between like, is this Holy Grail or do I just really like it for years, to the fact where I should probably just call it a Holy Grail at this point. This is the Laura Mercier Flawless Lumiere Radiance Perfecting Foundation. Now this is super hydrating, similar to the Jouer, but it is a radiant finish, not a matte finish. So even though I'm looking a little shiny today, if I would have used this, I probably would have been a little more glowy. I'm kind of on that border of going greasy now, to the point where if I take a little bit of powder, I can kind of show you what I'm talking about. Just taking a little bit of powder in the center of my forehead and nose, and you'll notice that that calms down that shine. If you could do that with powder, then you're fighting grease, not radiance. And in this instance, I'm getting a little greasy, but again, I used a very, very glowy hydrating primer with a foundation that kind of goes either way, and I used a hydrating powder, not a mattifying powder. So I basically set this up on my skin to fail just to kind of test it out. And just looking at it right here, I've used this foundation before, so as long as I switch to a mattifying primer and a mattifying powder, I won't have a problem. With this one, I get glow no matter what I do, but I also don't get greasy with it. So this one, I feel like it might be a little more user-friendly than the Wander one. However, the Wander one is absolutely beautiful as long as you know how to prime and set it properly. I think you could be happy with either of these. This is just a cleaner formula. This is clean at SEPHORA, so there's ingredients that it is formulated without, whereas parabens and phthalates and those ingredients can be found in some of the other products we spoke about today. So there are my top 7 picks. If you have any other questions, link them down below, or honestly, I've said this before, the easiest way to reach me if you have a question, if I don't answer a comment here, DM me on Instagram. I answer every single message over there, so I will be absolutely able to help if you have a little bit more of like a complex situation with skin type or scarring or any questions you have. Feel free to message me over there if you want a little more of an in-depth answer, but if you have any recommendations, leave them down below. I love when you guys share your favorites with each other, and I'll be looking in there for some recommendations because I'm looking to try something new as well. Thank you again, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!